Let's try this again. Maybe I'll get this right one of these days. All right. So I blame the left for who I am and how I behave. I point the finger at the political left. That doesn't mean I agree with everything the right says about politics. It certainly doesn't mean that, but I blame the left for all of my problems. I don't take accountability for any of it. It's not my fault, it's their fault. It's all their fault. And the reason I'm talking this way is because this is the criticism that has resonated with me the most. I The last few years I have put more of an effort into hearing out people on the right and exposing myself to more views. And this is one of the things that's resonated the most is this idea of the left is just they're pointing fingers and they have an endless amount of things to say about what they think is secretly going on in other people's heads about how important beliefs are, how important it is not to have bigoted beliefs in here, not to be racist or sexist or homophobic or transphobic, etc., etc. And meanwhile, it's like, and this is me paraphrasing the right again. Um, the stuff I've listened to the last few years, it's like, okay, so there are all these bad thoughts that people have, all these bigoted, nasty thoughts, and and there are all these terrible things in the world, and you all are such victims. You're victims of all these bad things. Okay, what are you doing other than complaining? What actions are you taking? What are you doing? What like okay, you're voting or whatever. Okay, that's like so what? What are you doing day to day? That's a few hours every 2 years. What are you doing day to day? What actions are you taking? You're protesting and holding signs. Is that the action that you're taking? That's no. That's you telling other people to take action. So when I say that I blame the left for all of my problems, uh, I'm being deliberately ironic. It's like if I say, okay, it's 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 not my fault that even though I no longer identify as a feminist, I still I still have I still have this thing inside of me that makes me just go from one woman after another, one crush after another, where it's just I just want to give you the world. What can I do? Boss me around, tell me what to do. How can I impress you? Like, okay, I'm gonna join the school play, even though it's terrifying for me. I'm gonna do this and act, and or I'll do stand up and make you laugh, and that'll what else can I do for you? Just one one crush after another, one woman after another who um, it's like is that how a healthy male feminist behaves. What's a healthy male feminist? Look, I support egalitarianism. I support equal rights between men and women. I The reason I'm no longer a feminist, the reason I no longer identify with the modern feminist movement is because if you diagnose men as being the problem, then you can't actually believe that men and women are equal. How could you? If one gender is more responsible for bad things in the world than the other, then that means that you don't think men and women are equal, certainly not morally. So then it's not an equality movement. But okay, in my personal behavior, even though I don't support modern feminism anymore, in my personal behavior, I I sound like a modern male feminist, right? Just one woman after another motivates me to do things, and I just want I just want a woman to boss me around and tell me what to do. I so yeah, back to my original point. I blame the left for this. I blame the left and the feminists for making me this way, and it's their fault and not mine, and there's nothing I can do about it until they change their ways. So look, it's like it's so it's so bizarre for me as someone who used to admire Bernie Sanders back before most people knew who he was to look at the current political landscape and see the way people are investing all of their hopes and dreams in Bernie Sanders is going to fix everything and save all of us. It's like yeah, he's going to take actions and magically fix things. Is that it? So this is like okay, like people people get so mad, especially on the left, get so mad if you tell them, take personal responsibility, lift yourself up by your bootstraps, stop complaining, stop pointing the finger, stop blaming other people for the state that your life is in, and do stuff and take action. And and it's it's not like I'm the type of person who who thinks that everyone starts on a level playing field and that there's no such thing as inequality or unfairness in life. It's not like I completely agree with what these right wingers say, but you know, if if I tell you guys on the left, if I say, all this fucked up shit in my head where, I just I don't have self worth outside of female approval. Like if I say that's not something I can fix, that's not something I can change, and it's their fault, then they'll see the problem with this. Hopefully, they'll see the problem with this attitude. Maybe, but I don't know. I don't know what a healthy male feminist looks like. It's like what I don't know. All it's like all of politics can be reduced down to the battle of the sexes, men versus women, Republicans versus Democrats. It's like we all. This is George Lakoff, cognitive linguist, wrote many years ago about how okay, it's just we all grew up with a family. Even if you don't grow up with a mom and a dad, we all grow up with some sort of guardians who lay down and enforce rules. And so we get from that the conceptual metaphor of government as being the family. And so, generally speaking, of course, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, you grow up identifying with a stereotypically, traditionally masculine, authoritative, strong father, you're going to be a Republican. If you grow up identifying with a compassionate, nurturing mother figure, you're going to be a Democrat. And that's that's perhaps a bug and not a feature of the human race that that politics ends up being about mommy versus daddy. Uh, but so look, I come at this from the perspective of someone who was, I was a feminist who openly despised men, despised my own gender, hated men. It was in my stand-up act. Poor women, everything's terrible for women. It's all men's faults. And even though I don't feel that way anymore. I don't think that anymore. I still live as if I do, which isn't my fault. It's the fault of the left. Cuz that it's it's all the left's fault. Everything that's wrong with me is the left's fault for making me think that complaining fixes stuff. That's why I'm complaining to you for making me this way. It's your fault. It's just it's and there's so many policy issues where if it was just about policy, then I would agree with the left. It's like I'm in terms of the ideal, I'm a globalist. In terms of what I think the ideal is, I I don't support nationalism. I don't support the concept of a nation state. I think we should have global government. People should be able to travel wherever they want. That's the ideal, in my opinion. And I think failure to do that retards the progress of our species. That we all define each other by our nationalities, and then we inevitably fight with each other, etc. However, however, I recognize that the majority of the globalists are really bad people with nefarious intentions, and my and the left recognizes this too in the socioeconomic context of there are millionaires and billionaires who aren't paying their fair share, and we need our infrastructure to be fixed, and healthcare and etc. We need these toxic men, these wealthy men, to pay for it. Well, there's a lot of overlap with those globalists that the right is afraid of. It's you're talking about the same people, and you switch the conversation to immigration, and suddenly those same toxic men with all this money, suddenly those same men are the good guys somehow. The, like again, I think globalism is the ideal. I think, but 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 I also recognize that the people who are closest to achieving one world government, they're not they're not doing it for us. They're not doing it for people who are outside of their exclusive club. They don't give a fuck what happens to us. They don't care. They're not doing it in a transparent way. You know, the, it's just here's the whole here's the whole action versus belief thing, where on the left, this cult, it's all about, if what's increasingly happening, okay, if you these are the banned people, you can't talk to these people or you get banned from the cult as well. You talk to this person and that means you're a right winger, and that's how you're labeled from now on. Notice how this doesn't, the name calling people hurtful names, and then they kill themselves. That it's people aren't terribly concerned about this until it comes to the transgendered, and I think it's a real tragedy that trans people commit suicide at such high rates. And me personally, if I meet someone, I'm talking to someone, they tell me, here's my preferred gender, that's how I will address them. But for me, it's not it's not a gender issue. It's it's more universal than that. This is just a question of, do you address someone by the labels they identify with? If someone says they're this, do you call them this, or do you tell them, I don't think you're actually that, you're just pretending? I think you give people the benefit of the doubt when you first meet them. If someone says they're conservative, someone says they're a communist, someone says they're Muslim or Christian or whatever, you call them what they tell you they are. And so, it's like the transit people have gotten so worked up over the transgender issue. And I can talk on and on about how difficult it must be to be transgendered, and how we should be respectful, and how there should be more unisex, gender neutral bathrooms to accommodate them, and on it. I can say all of these things, but if I say that it's an existential threat to a free society for there to be laws against misgendering someone, calling someone the wrong pronoun, or that people have to understand why so many are freaked out about the bathroom issue, etc. If I say that, then none of the other things that I say in support of trans rights matter. It all I've violated the rules of the cult, and then I don't then I'm all alone, because then I'm a transphobe to the left, and meanwhile, to to the people who are genuinely opposed to trans rights, I'm a trans rights supporter. So where's the benefit? Well, I guess the benefit is me being honest and talking about things I'm afraid to talk about. So it's like, if white men commit suicide at a disproportionate rate. White men kill themselves. at least in this country. White men are the champions. They're the experts. They're number one at committing suicide. Does this have anything to do, you think, with all of the mislabeling that's happening? Does this have anything to do with white men having their feelings hurt, being called things that they don't identify with? Is this maybe part of the same phenomena as with the trans suicides? Maybe. Maybe. Am I even allowed to ask that question? Not if I'm in the cult, I don't think. Not if I want to be part of a cult. Because if I want to be part of a cult, then comparing the plight of transgendered people who commit suicide to the plight of white men who commit suicide is racist and homophobic and transphobic, et cetera, et cetera. It's all this stuff. It's the belief. Belief is more important than action. Belief is more important than action seems to be the most important belief on the left these days. And so again, that's why I blame the left for me being this way, because that's what you're supposed to do if you're on the left, is blame harder. Blame harder until someone else does it. Blame harder until someone with more privilege fixes stuff. You know, if we can just get Bernie Sanders into office, then all of those wealthy globalists who we simultaneously love and hate are going to pay for everything. You know, the underpants gnome problem is a South Park episode. This is what I think about a lot when I see this. There's a South Park episode where there are these underpants gnomes, and they collect the underpants, and that's the first step: steal underpants. And the third step, I can't. It's like, you know, profit, or, you know, victory or whatever. Second step, it's just a question mark, and it's like, well, that doesn't matter. And that's what I see. That's what I see in left-wing politics these days. Is it's the underpants gnome problem of, okay, we know what the first step is. We know what the last step is. We don't know what the middle steps are. And if you ask us, you're a troll. Well, the first step and the last step are easy. These are the easy parts. Here's who we want to vote for. Here's what sign we're going to hold up at a protest. And then the last step is we all live in utopia happily ever after. And if you don't fill in the parts in the middle, then you are guaranteed misery and suffering. It won't end well. It won't end well if it won't end well. It won't end well if you, and you know, Bernie's not going to get elected president, but let's say that he does, for the sake of argument. Bernie Sanders gets elected president, and healthcare is going to be a right for everybody, and all of our infrastructure is going to be repaired, and, you know, all of the millionaires and billionaires are going to pay for all of this. We're going to force them to. Okay, how are you going to force them to? How are you going to force them not to leave? How are you going to force them not to get in their private jets and take off and go to their private islands? What are you going to have? You going to have the Air Force shoot down their jets? What are you going to do? If I ask these questions, I'm being a troll. We just take to the streets and demand it harder. No, that's not. This is the blaming, and this is why I will continue to blame the left for the way I am, because this is apparently the acceptable discourse And this is apparently the logical way of looking at things. Is just blame, 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 blame until someone else makes it better. Blame, 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 blame. Because I have right think. I have good thoughts. And that's more important than what you do. So really it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Look, I've talked about this many times. I'm obsessive compulsive. I'm diagnosed. I've been through several therapists. And I'm certainly not the first person to make this observation. What's going on? It's there are all these cognitive biases that in psychiatry are recognized as harmful, but increasingly in politics, especially on the left, are viewed as beneficial. Like um, thinking that you can know what's going on in someone else's head, being able to read people's thoughts and go, regardless of what that person says, I know they're a bigot, and thinking that thought action fusion, thinking okay that there's some sort of equivalency between what goes on in someone's brain and you know, oh, I'm rambling a bit. I've tried to do this video so many times now, and I don't know if this is turning out any better than all the other attempts at doing this, but it's just like I don't want to get kicked out of the cult because I don't know where else to go, but I don't I also don't want to continue to be part of this cult. I like it's not healthy. It's not good. It's not good that people are doing this. I Back in early 2016, I read an article that Milo Yiannopoulos wrote called "How to Beat Me," and ever since I read that, it's been impossible for me to hate the guy because it's like, I mean, he lays out step by step very simply. Okay, I'm trolling people. Here's how you beat me. You Here's what you do. You do your homework, you research, you come prepared with a question, you keep your emotions in check, and you wait your turn patiently, and then come to a Q&A at one of my events with this well-prepared question, and you do all that, then you beat me. That's like it's pretty fucking basic. Like it doesn't like anyone could write that, any troll, regardless of your political views. And if the you know I know Milo Yiannopoulos has not quite been in the public eye quite the same as he was in 2016, but that trolling has not been beaten, not by any means. It's not going to go away as long as the cult thinks that it's about an intolerance for discomfort. Like this goes back to the transgender issue with the bathrooms. This is one of those things I just haven't wanted to talk about because I sympathize with the plight of trans people, and I would like society to do more to accommodate them, but it can't be done at the expense of other people's uncomfortability. Here's what I'm saying. Okay, so if I could snap my fingers right now, and every building in America that has a men's and a women's bathroom would have a a unisex, gender neutral bathroom, then I would do it, and the issue's solved. And someone's got to pay for that, and if nobody's paying for it, you have a men's room and a women's room, and I understand that trans people may end up in a situation where they have two choices that are going to make them uncomfortable, or they have one choice. They don't have a choice. They have one option that makes them uncomfortable. It's like, okay, well, what about the other people who are uncomfortable? Well, that doesn't matter because the reason why they're uncomfortable is because they're bigots. They have the wrong think in their brain. Right? This is conventional wisdom right now on the left. Is that uncomfortability is a one-way street. And it's like, I'm sorry, but you know, part of life is that you have to deal with uncomfortable circumstances. Part of life is that you end up in places that make you uncomfortable. And we this goes back to the what I was starting to say about cognitive biases and the stuff I learned through therapy. To the extent that I'm aware of it, whether I apply it to my own life, which I certainly don't do a good job of doing, this you, by avoiding things that make you uncomfortable, you get more uncomfortable. You make the problem worse. And so we can point the finger and lecture at all those transphobes about how they have to expose themselves to more trans people, and lecture them and tell them what horrible bigots they are because they can't wrap their heads around the idea of a biological male using the women's room, etc. But it's like, wait, okay, how often are you guys being open-minded about situations that make you uncomfortable? No, you you try and make the people who make you uncomfortable disappear from society, even if they're not breaking any laws. And if they're not, you try and make new laws that it's like it's a one-way street. I don't like that it's a one-way street. That I don't like that we point the finger and say you all have you don't have enough tolerance for feeling uncomfortable because you're all a bunch of horrible bigots, whereas we are entitled to never have to feel uncomfortable. Because what? Because we're more fragile? Because we're weaker on the left? Again, I guess I am because this is where I came from. So it's the left's fault. It's and I should not have to. I mean, I'm not. It's real when I say I'm obsessive compulsive. I've had many licensed professionals all agree, yes, you're obsessive compulsive. Lots of things that make me uncomfortable. Okay, so do exposure therapy. You do exposure therapy. You expose yourself to the things that make you uncomfortable. And I have done this in politics. Okay, I have exposed myself to a lot of people and ideas that make me extremely uncomfortable. And I'm glad that I did. I'm better off for it. And it doesn't work if you're just safely inside the cult. In fact, the opposite happens. The opposite happens where once people are isolating and they're exposing themselves to less and less variety of views and lifestyles, and you get this collective think going where people decide what they believe based on social norms and conventions and just cautiously monitoring how people are talking and like makes kind of a politician out of everybody inside the not everybody but a lot of people where it's like it's, everything that pertains to so okay let's take global warming, climate change, for example. Here's another. I'm trying to talk about stuff I don't normally talk about these days. Climate change. I think the climate is changing. I think human activity has something to do with it. I don't see much utility in shaming people for being skeptical. I really don't. I think it's counterproductive, and I think it's illustrative of the problem, which is that by and large the left is more concerned with making sure people have right think going on inside their head regardless of what they're actually doing in terms of their actions. So when it comes to an issue like climate change, it's extremely important, and generally speaking, it's extremely important to make sure that someone is not a denier. They're not a skeptic. They're not a denier. But when it comes to taking action, that's something the powerful people have to fix. And we're gonna, if they won't fix it, we're gonna get louder and angrier and hold up more signs in the street until they take action. We've already done our part by having right think and shaming wrong think and pointing fingers and blaming and making demands. Step 1, collect underpants. Step 3, profit, money, victory, utopia. Step 2, you're a Nazi troll for asking. You're just trolling. Because why be concerned with step 2 if you're not concerned with action in general? If you're not concerned with personal action, if your perspective of politics and public policy is that the things that need to change are other people. The things that need to change aren't you. It's other people. And when they're and by the way, when you are the problem, when generally speaking, when the left tells you you are the problem, they're they're talking about thoughts. They're talking about unconscious biases, and you need to. It's like, okay, what? I know this is covering a lot of ground. Um, this rambly video that I've been trying to make for 2 weeks. Look, I'm not saying any of this is unique to the left from a broader historical standpoint. I'm not saying that you can't. There's certainly religious cults on the right. There's there, but look, I'd be lying if I said that right now at this moment in history, I think that what I'm describing is an equal problem on the left and the right because it's not. I don't think it is. I think I think that generally speaking, what has happened in our left wing cult is we we were brought up, we were raised with all these hopes and dreams, all the schools we went to that just didn't prepare us for what life was going to be like, that told us that the best thing we could do for a future was accumulate lots of debt graduating from college, and the worst thing we could do was not go to college or not graduate high school, and pick a major that seems fun, and it's there are all these, like, just if you look at just the basic stuff, just the basic survival stuff, like having weapons to protect your home, having growing your own food, that's the self-reliant stuff that humans have done throughout history. That stuff, that's like we on the left take for granted that we're going to get all that stuff from someone else, from society. We're going to get it from society because it's our right, it's our human right that everyone should have food and shelter, etc., etc. And if society collapses, I mean, I try and have this conversation with people on the left, and if they don't, generally speaking, they don't want to think about it. They want to change the subject as quickly as humanly possible. And I say, okay, well, first of all, the Civil War thing. It's like, okay, I'm worried we're gonna have a civil war. Yeah, whatever. It's fear mongering. It's not gonna. That's what they say. Well, it's the underpants gnomes. It's the underpants gnomes problem. Okay, step one, civil war. Step two, the what's step two? What's step two? If you're on the left and you're you're anti-gun and your expectation is that the government is going to give food and shelter and health care to everyone. You have a civil war, you have a collapse of society, people are fighting each other in the streets, not civil war like the way it happened in the 1800s when slavery was abolished. No, modern day civil war. We know what it looks like in other countries. Civil wars are happening all the time. We've already had one in the United States. There's already a precedent for it. It would look different, obviously, in 21st century America, But civil wars happen all the time, and just entertaining this possibility on the left that at some point, the way things are going, eventually we're going to have a civil war, and when that happens, you're not going to be able to rely on government to do all these great things that you expect and demand them to do for you. You're not even going to be able to rely on them for the most basic necessities of life. And then you have all these survivalists on the right who grow their own food and have guns and ammunition and own property and own land. And it's like these are the dumb people. These are the dumb backwards hicks who don't get it. Is that right? Is that what they are? Is that what you guys still think they are? That's what I thought they were 5 years ago. The last time I did stand up. The last time I was on stage joking about ha ha ha. These people think they're gonna fight and win a revolution against a tyrannical government with their guns. Well, I don't think they've completely thought through it. I don't completely agree with them, but boy, they're sure more prepared for it than the people making fun of them are. People like me, they're way more. They're certainly more prepared for it than than the socialist crowd that I came from. That I still, on some level, identify with, even though logically, I know. Okay, we're we don't have step two. We don't. This is why I bring up civil war with people on the left, and they just, generally speaking, immediately shut it down. It's like that's not going to happen, right? Because if you entertain the possibility that it might happen or that it will happen, then you have to logically go step by step through. Okay, how would we deal with it? Hmm. It's like people have an easier time doing this with the zombie apocalypse that they see. Like, I'm talking about literal zombies, like you see in the movies. Like, how do we survive the zombie apocalypse? Because it's a fun idea for some people to think about, but the actual pressing concern that escalating um, sectarian tensions in the United States are going to lead to civil war. What do the people who are demanding more and more from their racist, sexist government that they hate, but want expect more from? What are they going to do when society collapses? What are they going to do? There's no plan. There's no plan. May not be a great plan on the right, but there's at least a plan. There's no plan on the left. There is none. We're we're kicking people out of the cult because they say things like, "Well, you know, I don't have a problem with someone identifying as another gender, but I don't know. I feel a little uncomfortable using the bathroom with someone who doesn't have the same genitalia as me." Well, then they're gone, and that's the real world pressing. Or it's like this person that thinks that white people are oppressed. They're banished from the cult. It's like, okay. Meanwhile, we're all just making these empty demands that we that we have no way of enforcing. It's like people, yeah, you're gonna vote for better, vote better for better. Just do a better job of voting, and you'll get better stuff. You just All right. This is the point in this video, 50 minutes in, where I take a long, deep breath and think about what this is. Okay, I started this video by saying I'm blaming the left. I'm blaming the left for who I am. Again, this is this is me trolling, but it's me trolling. It's because I do agree. I do agree with, obviously, with these concerns that I hear so much from the right about victim culture, and I don't think the right is entirely innocent in this. I don't think they're entirely above it. I hear plenty of victim rhetoric on the right, not nearly as much, but I do hear it on the right as well. But nevertheless, the concerns about victim culture, it's, again, if, like, this idea that the biggest victim, like it's a competition. Who's the biggest victim? It's a competition. The reason why it's a competition, it wouldn't be a competition if not for the expectation that there will be a reward for whoever's the biggest victim will benefit the most in our society. That's the expectation that a lot of people have. It's good to be a victim, and it's better to be a bigger victim, and it's the best to be the biggest victim. And it just, this view that I was talking about earlier of government being, of all of us having this conceptual metaphor of government as a family, as mom and dad taking care of the kids. This, like, the whole benefiting from being perceived as a victim thing doesn't make any sense if you remove all of that and we have the scenario I've been talking about, where the government stops functioning and we're all on our own. Or the government becomes tyrannical to the point where virtually no one can deny it, and everyone understands, okay, this is something that, well, while we're on the subject, what would it take? What would it take? What would it take for people who have this expectation that if they just use the system properly, they just vote in Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or whatever, that that they're gonna get more. They're gonna get healthcare as a right, and we won't have any more homeless people, etc. What what would it take for people to think, actually, our government doesn't serve us? And let's put aside the government. I'm not talking about government in general as a theory. I'm talking about, in reality, the government that we have, and not the government we have because that's what people voted for. Like the the government, the people who are there one election after another, the people who actually run things. Okay, the CIA director and whatever appointed, but they're literally millions of people who work in government. It's not. Oh, I know I'm rambling. I don't know how I'm gonna post this video. Been going on for almost an hour. It's just, I'm going on and on a bit, venting my frustration with the left. I'm not a right winger, but I kind of wish I was. It would be easier if I was, because then I could just leave the cult and all right, I'm on the other team now. I don't. It's a lot of stuff on the right I don't like. Yeah, there is some hateful stuff. There is some bigotry. There is there are externalities that get ignored on the right. There are people who, just like on the left, there are people on the right who cover their eyes and their ears, and they don't want to deal with problems that they don't have solutions to. That's human nature. But really, it's so personal to me what's going on the left, because this is where I come from, and I know there are other people who know what I'm talking about, where it's like I'm not a right winger. I'm not a right winger. I'm not a nationalist. I'm not, et cetera, et cetera. But boy, is there a lot of crazy shit going on the left right now, and people are afraid to speak up. It's like I get why people freak out when well, God, there's so many examples I could give of the degeneracy that the right wingers and Christian right, etc., are pointing out. Where it's like, okay, yeah, it's the person with the fake womb with the fake fetus inside who's performing an abortion on himself or herself. I don't know how this person genders. It's like I get what. There's another issue, abortion. I've talked about this one a little bit. It's like, I don't know. Maybe I don't really have a political home. So I look at abortion and it's like, okay, I don't have a problem with abortion up until viability outside the womb, which is about halfway through pregnancy, 20 weeks or so, maybe a little more than that, 23. So like first 15, 20 weeks of pregnancy, before viability, I don't consider it life. If it literally cannot survive outside the womb, then I don't consider that life. That's just my personal view. And on the other hand, after viability, It is life. And I take a position like that. And I think, I mean, obviously I would think this since it's my view, but perfectly reasonable, sensible view that if you're on the right, I'm a godless baby killer, and if you're on the left, this is toxic masculinity, and I'm telling women what to do with their bodies because I hate women. Is there a point to all of this? I've been talking for an hour right now, and I don't know. I don't know. I started this video by blaming the left, so that's how I'll end it. This is all your fault. I blame you guys because I'm one of you, or at the very least, I was one of you. I don't know if I still am, but I certainly was at some point. And apparently pointing fingers and blaming and complaining and telling other people what they need to do is what this movement is about now. So that's what I'll do. I'll blame the left for making me the way I am and making it so that even though I am no longer a supporter of feminism, I still hate myself for being a man. Not in a transgender way where I want to have a sex change or anything, but just in a sort of grew up a male feminist. Women are victims, men are evil monster pigs or whatever. By the way, I hear so much in the political discourse that we're humans. This person's a human. That person's we're all treat us like humans. Treat us like human beings. Oh, by the way, men are pigs. Men are dogs. They don't see it. They don't see it. So yeah, I blame the left for all the straight white men who are killing themselves, and I blame the left for what else should I blame the left for? Blame the left for I blame the left uh, for the state that the planet is in terms of environmentalism because they think that shaming people is more important than taking action. It's more important that, I mean, if people just talk about air pollution and water pollution instead of shaming over climate science, it's like everybody knows that pollution is real. Isn't I actually gonna post this video after talking for over an hour? I don't know. What's the point of this? If I can just talking to myself, basically wandering around pacing, wandering around my mom's townhouse, thinking about how my life ended up like this. Just obsessed with politics, and now here I am trying to navigate issues like the trans rights issue. It's like have it's all gotten so personal. It's all gotten so fucking personal. So personal. this person made me feel a bad thing, therefore make law. It's so personal. I mean, I know I've said this before, but it's politics can be a way for people to distract themselves from their own lives and their own shortcomings, and to tell themselves how it's not their fault, that's not their responsibility, there's nothing they can do about it other than vote for better and get angrier and more accusatory if everyone doesn't think exactly how you think. And and it's making us less human. All of this, I'm a human being. I demand to be treated like a human being. It's making us less human because people aren't being consistent about it. Because, like, yeah, great, you're human. You assert your right to existence and be treated like an equal human. But the people you're talking to aren't. They're men who are pigs, or they're other type of monsters. I don't know.